right.
Due to the time restraint like that, can we go ahead and approve second reading?
Yes, we can. It's just a policy. We can approve a second reading at any meeting.
Well, I think it's the final plan that we're gonna have to, that hasn't been. We're gonna have to do this, we pass this with 2 readings tonight, we'd still have to adopt the final plan.
Yes, we will have the final plan, but they can still get grading permits with this approval.
So what I'm hearing then is if this was read twice and approved tonight, there would be no impact by not having a January 3rd meeting?
No.
That's my understanding.
You guys, as far as. But as far as the final plan, the complete, as far as the,
It would.
huh? It would affect it?
The final plan is currently scheduled for the January P and Z.
So that would be after the third.
So that would be,
But that would
yeah,
be,
it would be the week after,
January.
so it'd be the.
but we would need to have this completed so that they can actually
Un-
review. the
Understood.
project.
So if this read twice and passed tonight, then
We can get away with it.
Then we can
January.
do away with the January, they go to P and Z with the final plan and then,
Right.
and then,
And then we meet on the second meeting date. January 17th is when that would come before the.
I did want to bring one other date to your attention, just because this is the first time since the adoption of Juneteenth as a municipal holiday that we had a board meeting fall on that date. City Hall is closed that day. We do have that on our submittal calendar because it just happens to be a board meeting date. I know that's out there several months now, but since we're doing the submittal calendar, we need to kind of decide. We want to have a meeting that night. I mean, there won't be staff here during the day, which is fine. Or do we want to move that date forward or back? Or do away with it totally? And the only reason why it's pressing now is because it's part of the submittal calendar.
Can I suggest that we move it to the 18th? But be cognizant that you could cancel it in a May meeting if there's nothing on the agenda.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Sounds pretty reasonable approach.
I mean, in case we have something pressing that does come up or something that we need to have with these. I think we ought to at least have something on the schedule.
Yeah.
And a month before we can do that.
So can we get an amendment? We'll just need an amendment to that calendar. And
Move
then
to
that-
amend the June 19th, 2024 meeting date to June 18th.
second. Got a first, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
If we vote on doing away with the June.
Well, hold on, if I can make a motion, I would move to table this item until the end of the meeting so that we can address the item that we're just discussing that may need the January 30th. I'm sorry, I can't speak to that. So can we table this until the end of the meeting?
I guess, I don't see any reason why not.
Because if the
Let's
other
table.
passes, tonight,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna table, I need a. Yeah. Entertain a motion to table item 4 until the end of the meeting and, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 4 will be tabled until the end of the meeting. Right? Jim, any public comments?
Yes. Joel King.
Joel King, 2 Toussaint Drive. I'd like to speak about Stump Road. James, you mentioned one thing in the work session about, I guess, somebody must have made some kind of money to allow the city to use that as the runoff ditch behind me as I forgot the term that you used.
Drainage easement.
Drainage easement. Is there a contract for that somewhere? I assume. Who was it?
The recorder of deeds says so. And here's your copy if you'd like.
I would love it.
You're welcome.
And how long have you known this?
I've been saying it for 3 years.
Oh, you have not. You have not said anything like that whatsoever, sir. Never, ever, ever.
Absolutely.
Never.
Okay.
That is a lie. We
Okay.
can listen to the previous meetings. I guarantee you, nothing will be on there about that. Nothing. Zero.
I'm sure somebody will.
I will. Don't worry. I'll listen to them and I'll find it. I'm telling the truth on that one. And the other one, in reference to Stump Road, again, you may hear us, but you don't listen to us. When it comes to the 3 lanes, you're talking 3 lanes, winding to 2, then to 3, then to 2, then to 3, then to 2, then to 3. That's not what we were asking. We're saying 3 lanes at each end, 2 lanes the rest of the way. That's what we were saying. It has nothing to do with the winding in and out. Make it simple. There's 35 homes in my subdivision. We don't need a turn lane into it. Whispering Pines does not need a turn lane into their subdivision. God, there's one other thing. Oh, in reference to, I know the Prairie Encore thing is going to be coming up. I think they need to negotiate with the people from Inverness on these changes on the looks of the building so that the water tower gets thrown out. So we don't look so flippant Hoosier, because that's what that looks like. It just says Hoosier all over it. And they need to negotiate with them. And if they tell you it's company policy, I'm sure you've probably seen the pictures that they're around. There's a couple of them without that water tower, so they can be built. Thank you.
David Miller. I live with my family in the Inverness subdivision. Appreciate having a few minutes to talk about the Prairie Encore changes. Do have a few questions that were not brought up while I was at the P&Z meeting last week. While the engineer for Calico and the city planner for Darting Prairie agree that the traffic flow inside the Prairie Encore site is improved in the new plan, no one seemed to ask the question about how many more vehicles will be coming in and out of this site because of this change, or how additional traffic will impact Brian Feisey intersections and traffic patterns. Is traffic flow outside the site not more important than traffic flow inside? Sure that we've all seen how Starbucks can impact travel on surrounding streets like Laura Hill, Bryan and Veterans, as well as Ronald Reagan. Has anyone reviewed the number of parking spaces available after this change? As you may recall, the board approved a deviation from code when approving the original plan. The deviation called for apartment residents and their guests to share spaces with retail and restaurants. Are there more or fewer parking spaces, even though there's a significant increase in finished square footage where one would expect seating? Hoping that someone willing to say what you have money, which they are making hand over fist. I implore all others to join in my boycott of Calico and their businesses.
Okay, motion to open a public hearing. Aye. Second, all in favor? Any opposed? It will open a public hearing. Mac, would you read one for the public hearing?
Amended PUD area plan request, amended area plan lot 3 only for the approved Prairie Encore mixed-use development on approximately 17.25 acres of land commonly known as 1575 Bryan Road, and more particularly described on the PUD request. Final plan application received by the city on November 8th, 2023, on file with the city clerk from applicant Ingenuity LLC.
Okay, you guys got your presentation?
Yeah.
I'd like to say something before they even start for people in the audience. We're not redesigning the entire Prairie Encore. It can be built the way that it was approved back in March. What they're requesting is taking one building out and enlarging another building. And that's the only thing that we're actually looking at tonight. And I told P and Z the same thing last week when we discussed the changes. Thank you.
And it was approved by P and Z,
It
this
was
plan.
approved, 2 abstentions, and I did not speak with the people that abstained, but everybody else did vote in favor of it.
My name's Jim Cook. I'm with Mia Rose and Kelco. We are requesting a change to our PUD. Basically, we're consolidating 2 lots. The lot that had the Scooters Coffee, we're consolidating that into 1 lot, which will be a Macadoodles building. And currently, we're getting very close and finalizing our negotiations with Starbucks. That's the only change that we're here to change, but I'm here to answer any questions that you guys have about anything else regarding this change.
Dave, you got any questions?
My questions were all answered last week at P and Z. There were some comments about numbers of cars, stacking, going around the building where the order point was, but that's something that Starbucks with thousands of locations knows what it takes to fill an order, with how many cars need to stack in a driveway. That was one of the questions last week. Delivery door was a question last week, which is in the backside, which would cross the 2 lanes of traffic. One for the liquor store, which I'm not the only one that'll be there at 6 a.m., but there probably won't be a real long line in the morning at the liquor store. But deliveries could be a problem. Anytime Starbucks is open, there's always a line. So we answered that question. If you want to answer that for the other people.
Question about elevations. Been talking, we have a pretty picture here of your original elevation for the apartments, and then about the Macadoodles Sands water tower. Do you have any intentions for those 2 things? So no objection if we were to make an amendment to codify these 2 items?
Also, you and I talked about the 2 empty lots as far as landscaping, dotting and irrigating, that they would be maintained and look like the rest of the development.
That's very similar. When that is completed.
That, oh, no, that's exactly what. no,
Okay.
I would expect you to,
Trying to get your employment.
right, no. I'm saying when you're walking away, it should be green, landscaped and irrigated.
There'll be some time in there with the construction.
I understand. No, I understand.
Hopefully you'll find somebody to build on those spots before you walk away.
Well, we have people.
That's the goal.
And I halfway promise this could be my last question, but only halfway. Question was raised about parking. When these two buildings are consolidated down, what does that do to your parking?
Ratio. Sean could probably talk to those. I believe we met all the code. With the merchants, Macabees and Starbucks. Macabees, the number of parking spaces. Starbucks, it's gonna be a up, window, no dining. So just kind of what they're looking at doing. That may change, but it's 1,600 square feet, that's their. They're happy with the parking ratio. Comment. Any more.
Eliminate shared parking with the Sugar Fire lot, but then you allow these spaces on the Sugar Fire lot. So that they need to park and don't have to share parking.
Just for the record, and Todd, our planning and development manager, did work with Sean on this, and this is far the opinion of both Todd, and I think Tom can speak for himself, but I think you can agree. This setup, both traffic flow, access to parking, is far superior than what we had before, so we're very pleased with the way the parking has turned out with this iteration of the plan, especially as opposed to the other. Yeah.
This, that's. Yep. A lot going on.
And my real last question then, because it piqued my interest, feel free not to answer if you consider it proprietary. The reason for the walk up versus a sit down, is it space or is it something else? Okay. So that maybe if something changes, you may come back with a.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mike, I'm curious if this is a concept that someone, because the new Paneras that opened up on Highway K is the same
Same
way.
way.
There's no sitting in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everything, there's no drive, there's no order window either. You have to order everything ahead of time.
On an app or on.
On an app to get through that Paneras on Highway K. So I don't think that's a new thing.
Used to be,
Common with
Yeah.
businesses or not.
so it's like a half a dozen tables in there, but, in my many softball and soccer travels, I have occasionally, where the closest Starbucks is one of these walk up only. Not bad, they're busy, they can be busy, but people either go through the drive-through line or just, mobile order your coffee, walk up, pick it up at the window and take off.
This is an investment for the city, for the project, for the residents. There's income reaching the city. Understand. Starbucks. Obviously, Starbucks can sell more cars to this. I think scooters average sales of about 750 a unit. Starbucks is like 1.7 million. So there's financial reasons as well as aesthetics. By currency, one building now constructed, it's not a coffee building. Bunch of rough scooters, no, that thing would go away, it's awkward.
And that was one of my biggest concerns when we were building that scooters. If it goes out of business for some reason, what are you gonna put in there? Nothing. Where if we consolidate this into one building, we can always market it into something else if something would go out. I mean, I think it's a big benefit. Yes.
I promised them.
Any other questions?
My question is answered.
Okay, you got a motion to close the public hearing?
Anybody else for the
Oh,
public?
oh, is there any public comments on the public hearing?
Yes. Rich Linderman,
Thank you. Rich Linderman. I live in Cambridge. And I keep seeing that we keep getting more and more requests to change or ratify. The only change I really like to see on that Prairie Encore would be to cease and all activities, but that's not going to happen. I hope since they're coming back here to negotiate, what does changing the tax abatement period in order before they approve anything onto this nonsense. I hope you've thought about it. I don't think you probably have. The last board, your mayor was able to ram through Prairie Encore, obviously against the will of most of the people that live there. So I hope you do actually think about tax abatement changes, negotiate something and get something for the city rather than give it away.
My name is Cheryl Bratton. My husband Larry and I live on Cruden Bay Court in Inverness subdivision. This is a slightly amended version of the speech I gave to P&Z last week. As the board reviews the changes requested for the Prairie Encore this evening, something to consider. Bryan Road's status as a heavily traveled north-south corridor recently prompted the Town Square Vision Committee to name the corner of Bryan and Ficey this city's quote-unquote front door. However, because Darden Prairie's government couldn't bother to create commercial zoning codes based on compatibility of uses and aesthetics, or hire a city planner until it was 18 months too late, or for that matter, approve an economics incentive policy before it was too late, the city relinquished its control, gave it to Coleco, and the developer was given carte blanche to decide what the city's first impression on others would be. Before it was approved, James Knowles claimed the Encore's PUD status would give the city more control over the final product. If that's true, then now's the time to instruct the developer to tone down the Macadoodles, Hillbillies, or Us facade. Except for the long lines of vehicles, it's hard to argue with the Starbucks, and I understand that as a liquor store, Macadoodles has an inventory of legendary proportions. But with its nearly 36,000 locations, it's difficult to believe Starbucks would surrender its minimalist and globally famous aesthetic to a company with curb appeal as wildly incompatible as Macadoodles is. I provided a photo for you to pass along to one another. I encourage you to follow the example set by the city of Lee Summit, where the Macadoodles water tower was eliminated and the building clearly has a brick exterior. At last week's P&Z meeting, several members of the commission echoed the need for those changes, and I didn't hear the developer mention anything tonight about the brick, only the water tower. Without any attempt at apology to residents or obvious reflection, 3 of you are directly responsible for financial, public relations, and school district debacle, which will be long remembered by more people than just those residents who inhabit this part of the Westplex. There's already a Highway K, a Ronald Reagan Drive, and a Parkway in Wentzville, where developers were allowed to run amok. Your duty is to protect Garden Prairie's front door. As author Jeanette Winterson once wrote, a front door can be a wonderful thing or a sight we dread. It's rarely just a door.
That speaker? Okay, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
So move, seconded, Justin and Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. New business,
Rebill 2351 for the first time.
and a motion to read Bill 2351 for the first time. Second,
Second.
and a second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none? Matt, could you read Bill 2351 for the first time?
Bill 2351, an ordinance of the city of Garden Prairie, Missouri, providing for the approval of the Prairie Encore amended PUD area plan.
Any discussion or debate?
Pursuant to the conversation we just had, I'd like to propose an amendment, move to amend the current proposal to include reversion back to the original elevations presented back, I believe it was December 22 for the apartments, as well as the elevations that we have in front of us that removes the water tower from the back.
I'd also like to add, that was brought up in planning and zoning to include like a band across the front of stone or river rock. That's something that can be done on the front of Macadoodles.
Today, I'd like.
Yes or no?
Well,
Mr. Mayor, we could address that at the final plan level.
Can you address that at the final plan level? Okay,
We can address that at the final plan level.
okay, all right.
To be clear, the motion I just made, I want to restrict that these two elevation changes.
Okay.
Seeking.
Got a second? Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So, we're gonna amend the bill to include the original elevation of the apartments and the removal of the, the water tower on the building. I always thought it looked like a gun turret, but anyway. All right. So,
So if I can, just one more comment. I appreciate the conversation that I've had with Mr. Cook about these and his sensitivity to the concerns, at least in this area, from residents. This could go through as approved. I think that this is over that plan. I think it looks better for residents. I think that it looks better for the developer. This constrained to just the scope of this that's in front of us, I think this is a positive thing. So I'm happy to support this, even though I voiced my concerns about the entire plan. I do support this.
hey,
Go for a second reading.
Second.
got a motion and a second for a second reading as amended.
Bill 2351, an ordinance of the city of Garden Prairie, Missouri, providing for the approval of the Prairie Encore amended PUD area plan.
Roll call vote.
Second.
Got a motion for a roll call vote. For a second. Jim?
Alderman Whitman,
Aye.
Alderman Gettemeyer, Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Costello.
Aye.
Alderman Underbach.
Aye.
Alderman Wendling.
Aye.
Ordinance 2279.
I declare Bill 2351 as ordinance 2279.
Move to rebill 2352 for the first time.
Got a motion to read Bill 2352 for the first time. Entertain a second.
Second.
Second. Mark, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none? Back.
Bill 2352, an ordinance of the city of Garden Prairie, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to negotiate and execute a reimbursement agreement with Public Water Supply District Number 2 of St. Charles County, Missouri, for relocation of certain water and or sanitary sewer facilities along Stump Road.
Any discussion or debate? Hear none. Like to read this a second time? A motion
Motion to rebuild.
Rebuild 23 for a second time? Got a second?
I'll second.
Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Two? I think the ayes carry. Mac, will you rebuild 2352 for a second time?
I've moved for a roll call on this.
Well, let's
I only
read it
two,
first.
two.
Let's read it first.
No, because it don't see that.
Oh,
There only are two and two.
okay. Got a motion for a roll call vote.
Sorry, I should have
But
phrased it differently.
Does he need to read it a second time?
So,
You want
I-
to vote valid on the motion. Well, he wants a roll call vote on the
Motion to read it.
second.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
lead me to
All
confuse
right.
things. I apologize.
Alderman Gettemeyer. Alderman Wanling.
Nay.
Alderman Costello.
Hey,
Alderman Underbach.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Whitman.
No.
and the reason I wanted to come back to that is I am on the fence on whether or not, because I do agree, we didn't have a clear view of this before, and I think it does warrant additional consideration before we read the second time and vote on it. Because I've heard from some aldermen that they want to do some more other due diligence on it, and I respect that. I'd like to know precisely what a delay in vote until the second meeting in January would do to this if we did, considering that the work isn't slated to happen until groundbreaking on the project.
There's a 6-week lead time to order the materials. So I don't know.
When
I
do we
don't-
anticipate groundbreaking?
I guess it depends if you say yes to this contract tonight.
If
I mean-
approving the
It
contract,
all depends on when OMODOT gives us a notice to proceed. I mean, all of that's highly speculative. And there's a lot of, because this is a grant project, because there's other public entities involved, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to this.
do
So,
we
well,
anticipate that it
my-
would start before I
My-
guess it'd be April?
Yes,
Absolutely. I mean, March 15th is the drop dead deadline for MoDOT. That's their notice that, I said drop dead deadline. That's their construction season beginning for all their projects. We will probably be starting before that. Again, it just depends, pre-work, it depends on weather, depends on construction schedule, depends on when we give people signed contracts so they know they can start scheduling their work. So I mean, there is a serious potential for delaying this up to a month or 6 weeks.
I guess my biggest concern on this is the project that's only been approved by this board. This is just administration work of doing the bids, get the project going. Unless somebody's really considering rescinding this bill, I don't know why we want to delay it.
I will tell you that I've had, at your request, Alderman, I spoke at length with PWSD2 yesterday about the details of this project. If you have a question that I cannot answer, then I understand the delay, but we have delayed things multiple times in which I've received either no question or no follow-up. So I'm curious as to what is the question that anybody who thinks we do not need to read this a second time tonight, what is the concern? The packet, I will apologize on behalf of what the city's always done, which is they print out, they copy, they scan your packets to you. So I'm sorry that was digitized, but this city, our staff has had this Exhibit A very clear to see this entire time. And PWSD2 is the one that's actually managing this project. We are just entering into an agreement to reimburse them for their costs. They're following public bidding guidelines as a public entity. They've chosen the lowest and best bidder. Our project engineer with HR Green actually spec'd this out, designed this, did everything. I mean, so they obviously worked for us as well. There's no concern from us that this could be overpriced, could be done cheaper, could be done more efficiently. And in fact, we talked about the efficiency issue yesterday. If you are not satisfied, I'm interested to know why.
To speak directly to that, one of the things is when we spoke, we talked about the possibility of some greater efficiencies, having the contractor who's there with all their equipment do the excavation and restoration versus this separate contract that it on its face just seems like it would expect that they would have to, as they call it, mobilization. They'd have to mobilize out to the site, do it, restore it, and all that kind of stuff. And I was told that it wasn't itemized, but now looking at the bid comparison for the project, it looks like that itemization up to about $50,000 for excavation and restoration. And so those are the questions I'd like to explore a little bit more.
That, and I told you yesterday, that is the excavation of the water line. That is not the restoration of the street. It is not, they're not rebuilding the street. That is digging up, whether it's hydro excavation or otherwise, whichever method that Bonrado decides to use. The street will be tore up by Understall. Once it's been exposed, they will excavate down to these lines, and they've got to excavate the current line and the future lines, put it in, and then they rock it, restore it to that level, but they're not paving back over it. There's no paving. That was your concern yesterday. So
I've voiced a couple different concerns all
Let me
the
know.
way from groundbreaking to restoration. But that was one that I was kind of surprised when I read that.
Mayor, may I provide a point of information?
Go ahead, Tom. Keep it short.
Well, yeah, I tend to. The water companies typically have certified contractors that they will rely on. And so KJ Understall, I'm not sure, but they may not be considered a qualified contractor for their work. I just wanted to point that out. I know these other two do a lot of water line work. KJ Understall is more of a general contractor, so they may not be a water line contractor. Just wanted to point that out.
Understood, and that's a fair point. And that'd be one of those questions that I would support, unless there is a compelling reason that we have to do it this time, support breaking this into two different meetings.
this still has to go, once you've approved it, it still has to go to the PWSD 2 meeting, board meeting for approval at the beginning of January. But once we send this over signed to them, if we're agreeing to this, then they will put it on their agenda for approval. They can give notice. So I mean, if we delay this and then we miss their board meeting date, then again, we could be going out to February with this for their approvals on the issue.
Any idea what the date of the PWSD2 meeting is in January?
I don't recall.
It's probably early January, and there's the early.
Is if there is going to be a delay in this, then I would ask for specific direction as to what it is that the board would like provided to help them make their decision.
Ask for a copy of the plan, so that's not necessarily with this, but it's with the stump road in general. And I also thought that the stump road wasn't going to hit the agenda until January, so I was pretty surprised.
When were you told it was not going to come until January?
Was at the last stump road. That road.
Right, we're going to start work in January, assuming that we actually have a contract and notice.
I didn't understand.
Okay.
I wish this board had taken under reconsideration, because this is just administration work of work that's already been approved by this board to do.
But not budgeted.
So we
It's
delay it.
budgeted.
What benefit do we get out of delaying?
It's absolutely
I mean,
budgeted.
Yes.
Budgeted.
Budgeted in
Last meeting,
The whole thing.
budgeted this. this project.
The project, but this is an unexpected, and that's, my point is only, I can understand the desire from some of the board members to look deeper into this now that we have the numbers. And if it doesn't affect anything, if it doesn't delay anything, then prudence would say, but I'm just tossing it out there because I want, and I'll relinquish the floor to anyone else that has thoughts on it. I was just wanted to slow down so we got a conversation.
Yeah, I'd certainly like to understand when the date is for the WSD2 meeting because if we did delay it, wasn't going to affect it. I don't see any issue there. But if for some reason it fell in the one day, I think that we have before our next meeting, and that's the date they have their meeting, then I would certainly consider.
Mayor,
I mean, one thing that also needs to be considered is with the availability of materials, lead time. When contractors bid, their bids are usually good for 60, maybe 90 days too. I mean, you're getting to a point where you're pushing off bids. They could go up, they could go higher, materials could go higher, it could be unavailable. I mean, as I kind of explained the other day to you, Alderman, this is literally a symphony of multiple people and moving pieces. And we are not the conductor of it. But we're trying to get involved in this process. And some of these decisions that we make could cost us more, could cost delays, which would cost us potentially more. And I'm just trying to understand what is the thought process of what is to be gained. If there's a thought that there could be additional savings, again, I got very clear clarification from Chris Lesh, the project manager of PWSD2. There is no road restoration work being done as part of this contract. They are literally shoring, digging, backfilling the hole. They're going to have to do that anyway. I mean, Understall's not necessarily going to do that. And if Understall does that, then that's a change order that we're going to have to work out with them. Again, I don't know of or can't conceive of necessarily any additional savings. Your point was well taken that if this road was to be dug up, restored, and then dug up again later, that could be an issue. If I sought that answer for you, that is not the case. So that is.
Delaying this bill, will this also delay Bill 53? Listen, and is that gonna come into time constraints with the bids?
I don't believe that necessarily.
Wouldn't it be good to know what the match is gonna be? 'Cause speculation at this point, is it gonna be 88%? Is it gonna be 62%? And how much are we gonna be on the hook for? Wouldn't that be a relevant number?
I think you looked at, all right, so at least the way that I look at this is that we've got this range, we've got, what was it? 12% to 50%, basically, right? That match is like 38%.
Correct.
Okay, so we've got 12% to 50%. We have a road project that we've approved. We came in under our high end estimate, so we've got some wiggle room there. Along with that, though, this is work that we're requiring PWSD to do for our project. They went out and bid it. They're controlling it. They're in the driver's seat, and we have to pay them back to get the road. We can sit and look at it for another month. We can sit and look at it for another 2 months, 3 months, whatever. We're still going to have to pay PWSD back to get that water line. Doesn't change the equation. So to get the road done, we're going to be on the hook to somewhere between 12 to 50% of this number. It's within the overall sort of original project budget from what I recall, or at least really darn close to it.
Is this
I don't
within the
really see a
original
reason.
project budget?
Close. If you're within the 12, if you're within the 12%, I assume we are, because there was some wiggle room, I think, on the original.
I believe that this is over that original project and we have to go back to the entities and see if they will accept that overage. Match that, right?
I mean, we're going back to them, so.
No, we're going back.
Yeah.
I should say the match, right?
So-
Well,
so
what we
ultimately-
plan next, it could be on.
Yeah, ultimately, when you, as we go through this project, we don't get that, we don't spend the money up front, we don't get it up front. So the real question will be at the conclusion of the whole project. Will it be over? I mean, it depends on conditions, it depends on change orders, depends on a lot of things. Hanley Road, for instance, by some of the work we were able to do, some of the efficiencies we were able to do throughout the construction process, we were able to absorb certain overages with certain savings and come in at or under the cost. So telling you today, certainly because there's a lot of parsing of words here, I'm not going to tell you that this will or will not be over, because I don't know what's going to happen in October when the last invoice comes and what we've asked them to do or not do. But I mean, our estimates right now are, we're within the acceptable range of where we expect it to be to spend on this project. That can change. So, I mean, I guess the only question is, at what point do you feel that this project is no longer worth doing? And then just eating the cost that we've already expended, because that seems to be what we keep coming back to. Either we're in for a penny, you're in for a pound on this, or take your pennies and give them back to the federal government, actually a lot more than pennies, and say that we're just not going to go forward. But I mean, we need to, if that's the will, I mean, that's what I keep hearing, is that this was a different board, then I think there just needs to be a determination of that. Because
I don't think that's the question.
well, maybe not for you, but it has come up tonight twice. I'm just saying, here we are talking about a purely administrative issue. You've asked good questions yesterday. I've provided the answers. Staring at this any longer isn't going to make it cheaper. In fact, I would venture to say it's going to be more expensive. These people are planning work right now. If somebody else can give them work, they'll do their work, just like we've done with the concrete in the streets.
With respect, that, and you're inheriting some bad stuff, so I'm not saying this is stupid. This is kind of you have to do it kind of urgency that we've had throughout the entirety of this project, that has a lot of people a little gun shy on it and questioning and scrutinizing more than would necessarily be.
I appreciate the scrutiny, but I've given you the answers. I've sat on a dais like this for 16 years, and I can tell you that I've never seen that level of scrutiny unless you're just trying to deep six it. So you've been asked and answered the questions. I'm happy to answer anything.
So some of those answers have come into question.
So you're
as I
questioning,
already brought up just a few minutes ago. And so that main question that I had yesterday of, can we find some efficiencies with incorporating this into the work, at least the excavation and restoration, to save some dollars, asking the question is what I was going for.
so can you point to where you say that we're spending $50,000 on?
So I don't know how much of this applies to that specific, the work that could reasonably be done by those that already have the excavators and grinding and everything out there, but we got protection and restoration, mobilization.
At $4,000.
Excavation, granular bedding and backfill. I think that is, yeah, the rest of them would be reasonably.
So the granular bedding and backfill, $7,000. I mean, if we're thinking the KJ Understall can find rock cheaper and dump it in the hole
Okay.
cheaper.
So hold on. Between those items I just mentioned, 3,000, 10,000, 26,000, 7,820.
What-
So those together.
Again, they are the company performing the work. Just like the problems we've had with, we'll just point to our fiber friends, right? Who like to, who might do excavating work and they like to pothole around lines. They hit them all the time.
Okay.
I don't know that the company replacing the water line is going to be the one that says they want someone else to do their digging for them.
And I think we're probably repeating the same stuff. I've said that. I'm gonna leave it there and just whatever the rest of the board thinks.
But it's not just that. If you wish for me to ask, and there would have to be a lot of lead time probably, and I don't know that they can answer these questions. If KJ Understall or anybody else would be willing to, or match those prices, they're not going to be free. If they do that work, it's going to be, so do we think it's a 5% savings, a 10% savings? That's a $5,000 difference?
It's the most important.
$2,500 difference? If it's a $2,500 difference, I was gonna hold this up over $2,500. I don't know that it's necessarily going to save that. I highly doubt it. To Tom's point, we don't know if they're a certified contractor by PWSD two, so they would not be able to perform the work. We don't know if the equipment will be available or if it'll be $2,500 more expensive if we wait another 6 weeks.
I think the other thing that goes along with this, right, is that the important question I think was answered, which is work being duplicated? Sounds like from the city engineer and city administrator, they dug into that and they said, no, it's not duplicated work. If it's not duplicated work, it's work that needs to be done and PWSD is going to do, going to have to reimburse them. I would generally agree, delaying it, what you can do is cost. But you're gonna have to do it either way. And if we dig it, either we don't trust the city administrator and the city engineer, review that and say, yes, it's not duplicate work, in which case there's a much bigger problem that we talk about. Or we do trust them, in which case, yes, nothing's going to change except for possibly the price.
So the
Now,
only,
maybe it stays the same. I'm not saying it doesn't, but
the only clarification I would make there is the duplicate work, in my mind, would be the setup, bringing the equipment and things like that.
yeah, but if it's gonna be a different guy, because, yeah, needs to be a certified, the water company isn't gonna let somebody that's not certified come in to do it. You get to pay for duplicate work either way.
And that would be,
And actually, they get to pick their contractor to do it. So,
and that would be the question I asked. That was my entire point, just asking a question.
and I think it's, and I 100% agree. I think it's important to ask questions that make sure these things are not be. 100% agree with that. Once it's been asked and answered, there's no reason.
I don't think it's been asked. That's my.
Me, it sounded.
And that was the impression I was left with yesterday. Now I'm. Gotten confirmation that has been. Answered.
Okay, so let's move on. Are we gonna vote on it? Are we gonna read it a second
Right.
time or not?
And I
I
would,
mean,
I'll make a motion again to read it.
got a motion to read it.
We've
Okay.
already had a motion and it's failed. So
Okay.
the only way to bring it back up is a motion to reconsider, which has to be brought by someone who voted.
Okay. So is there a motion to reconsider by someone who voted no? Okay, so it failed. We're not reading it.
I would.
We're moving on,
Given
right?
that, I would. Okay, well, hold on. I would make a motion then to postpone this until our next.
It's already postponed. We voted on it to postpone it.
If it isn't read for a second time, it goes to the.
Okay, then. Because you said died. I want to make sure that was clear.
The motion.
Okay, entertain a motion to read Bill 2353 for the first time. Got a first and a second? You got that, Kim? Justin and Mark? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. Mac, will you read Bill 2353?
Bill 2353, an ordinance of the city of Garden Prairie, Missouri, declaring KJU Inc., DBA KJ Understall Construction Co., the lowest responsible bidder for the Stump Road Reconstruction and Improvements Project, city project number 971670, and authorizing the city administrator to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement by and between the city and KJU Inc., DBA KJ Understall Construction Co. for the same.
Any discussion or debate?
Yes,
The only comment that I would make is pursuant to the previous discussion about a couple of the items, possible changes. Love to get answers. If this passes.
I would also be interested in hearing about, I've heard the term traffic calming measures. I'd like to hear what those options would be. Again, I still have no worry about the original.
I think we already discussed that traffic calming measures and the process of what we would have to do to get those. So it's not something we can add to this.
Oh, I disagree with that, and I would join with hold on,
It's
let me finish what I'm saying. As part of those questions about center lane and efficiencies in construction with the PWSD question, I would ask that those be asked. And specifically about that, the traffic calming. If that's what you're talking about.
The proper method would be to engage our engineer, either both our city engineer and or the project engineer, to first have conceptual scope of work for what we're talking about. For me to go to a contractor and ask him, hey, can you do traffic calming measures? Well, we wouldn't even know what to start or what that even means. You give them plans and they build it, or they don't, they tell you how much it costs. We can set up a conversation with, well, first of all, it's gonna cost us money. So we need to have a conversation in the future about how much money this body wishes to spend to engage either our engineer or the project engineer on coming up with some cost estimates for a couple different iterations, maybe of traffic calming measures. We decide to go down that road, we can go further, have that conversation with KJ Understall as a potential change order to see if those numbers might match up, since they are on the job working, probably get some firmer numbers than just assuming we guess what a bid might cost. But we would need to start with defining what we're talking about with traffic calming measures. So I'm happy to, if we want to, after these bills, if the board would like to give direction to have myself and staff look at a future work session, maybe the second meeting or the only meeting, hopefully in January. At which time we can go ahead and have a full conversation about the scope and depth of what we're talking about and cost. Would that be amenable to the board?
That sounds good to me, and I defer over to Alderman Goodmeyer. Feelings on that since you brought it up.
I didn't know that phrase. I just really.
But I think the path you laid out works great.
So we'll do that.
What additional costs?
We'll discuss that at the next work session. We can have a conversation about cost before we engage too deep into any kind of design or anything of that nature. But we'll put it on the work session.
Yeah, I'm gonna entertain a motion for a second reading of Bill 2353.
Sorry.
At first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey,
The one nay? Okay. Back, will you read Bill 2353 for a second time?
Yeah, sure. Bill 2353, an ordinance of the city of Garden Prairie, Missouri, declaring KJU Inc., EVA KJ Understall Construction Co., the lowest responsible bidder for the Stump Road Reconstruction and Improvements Project, city project number 971670, and authorizing the city administrator to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement by and between the city and KJU Inc., EVA KJ Understall Construction Co. for the same.
Any discussion or debate? Roll call vote. Got a motion for a roll call vote?
Second.
Second by Mark. Kim, would you call the roll?
Alderman Costello.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Underbach.
Aye.
Alderman Wanling.
Aye.
Alderman Whitman.
Aye.
Alderman Gittmeyer.
hey,
Ordinance 2280.
I declare Bill 2353 is ordinance 2280.
Move to read Bill 2354 for the first time.
Got a motion and a second to read Bill 2354 for the first time. Justin and Mike? Or Keith.
Other Mike.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none. Mac, would you read Bill 2354 for the title?
Bill 2354, an ordinance amending chapter 500 of the Garden Prairie Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 International Building, Residential, Fire, Existing Building, Plumbing, Mechanical, Fuel, Gas, Swimming Pool, and Spa, Property Maintenance, and 2015 Energy Conservation Codes, and the 2020 National Electrical Code, along with certain amendments thereto, and providing for the issuance of permits and collection of fees.
Okay, does everybody understand what's going on here with this?
So new building code came out, we reviewed it, we're now adopting the new parts to replace the old parts
Yes.
that we already adopted. So my only real question is, because I remember the really long discussion we had last time, is anything noteworthy? Because I know some things we take and some things we don't. Well, anything noteworthy that changing really from our code's perspective?
I don't
I
know.
look- I was
It
looking
kind of
through-
follows suit with what Lake St. Louis did. There was what was the item that they decided not to change to stay with the 2015 code? It was kind of questionable to me.
Yeah, I know.
Well, St. Peter's,
I recall
There-
most of the building inspectors get together and discuss the code and talk about what's good, what's. I remember some pretty heavy discussion on that.
So am I to understand that if we don't, if there is damage to the city, if we don't pass this tonight, it'll risk the city?
our insurance rates, things will automatically go up.
If, yeah, but, if we. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about voting this down tonight necessarily, but if delaying second reading until the next, my concern was, I'd like to look through these before we vote on them, and we got this one a little bit late. Okay, I think that's.
That's the only reason.
We can amend it, we can.
Move for a second reading.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for a second reading, Justin and Keith,
All right.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hear none? Mac, would you read Bill 2354 for a second time?
Bill 2354, an ordinance amending chapter 500 of the Garden Prairie Municipal Code and adopting the 2021 International Building, Residential, Fire, Existing Building, Plumbing, Mechanical, Fuel, Gas, Swimming Pool and Spa, Property Maintenance, and 2015 Energy Conservation Codes and the 2020 National Electrical Code, along with certain amendments thereto, and providing for the issuance of permits and collection of fees.
Any discussion or debate?
Roll call vote.
Got a motion for a roll call vote by Justin,
Second.
second by Keith. Kim, would you call the roll?
Alderman Underbach.
Aye.
Alderman Castle.
Aye.
Alderman Wanling.
Aye.
Alderman Whitman.
Aye.
Alderman Gemeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Ordinance 2281.
One, I declare Bill 2354 as ordinance 2281. Staff communication, city attorney.
We do, we need to, I'll go back to the item of the,
yeah.
To the, yes, to the consent agenda, item 4.
I do want to bring to the board's attention, we will need to have that January meeting because PWSD 2's meeting will be
It's
on the Thursday.
second Thursday.
They're
Immediately after.
they're on the first Thursday.
Oh.
Now they've moved it to the second Thursday historically for January only, but those other meetings are executive committee meetings only. So the board only meets on the first Thursdays of the month. So otherwise we would have to kick this to them back into the February meeting. So we'll need to get this done.
It's done on January 3rd so that they can have it by April 4th of the.
So, yeah, so that was kind of goes back to my original question as far as my comment is if that's gonna delay, so if essentially their meeting is the day after our meetings,
That's correct. Yeah.
and that wouldn't give us time to process anything. That would give us one day to process it over.
I mean, we could just have it on that Wednesday and then we'd pass it and then I can just send it over and they can pass it on the Thursday. But I mean, that would be the lone agenda item.
The lone agenda item for January 3rd.
Should it be the final?
The final plan has to go to P and Z and
Oh, that's right.
it'll be on the
Sorry.
10th. So
Okay.
the final plan won't be here till the 17th. Regardless.
What are we thinking?
I'd be willing to,
All right. So we will.
I would say move to approve, item 4 from the consent agenda as amended.
Okay, got a motion and a second to approve,
We got another date too, July 3rd.
July 3rd.
the 4th of July weekend. Got a meeting on July 3rd, first Wednesday. Oh,
We would normally work on July 3rd.
yeah,
We'll close on the 4th, but
I'll be here.
I mean, unless the board makes.
no, there's been question this year, so I wouldn't be opposed to it. I'm fine with it. I could be here on the 3rd. For this year.
I'll be here on the 3rd softball nationals. It's still the 3rd weekend.
third. How many people are good with the 3rd?
Good 4.
Not Mike?
If
Oh,
he's
I'm-
good.
You can't, you're not gonna be
I
here?
have no idea what I'll be doing on
You
July.
just had on.
Then we'll just
Time when we can.
keep it as is. We can always
Yeah, we-
reschedule if, something comes up.
We have June 19th.
We already amended that.
Yeah, we
We
meant
amended
the
that.
18th.
That is going to move, okay.
Okay, so, we have a motion to approve as amended. All in favor? Any opposed? Hear none? We'll, put nay.
Oh, darn, no, sorry. Getting late, I'm sorry.
But I'm sure that is the name. That's at 6.
Okay,
Running out of gas.
so item 4 is back on the consent agenda. Do we need to approve? Approve to go back on? Okay. Staff communication, city attorney,
I have nothing, man.
city engineer.
Yes, I just want to add to my work session. We are started working on the grant for Post Road Phase 2. And we have started working on the grant for Bates Road. Those would be both STP grants that we would be submitting February 8th. There's a lot of work to be done, so we have started.
That's the second phase of post.
That is correct, sir.
Yes. Already been approved for the first phase.
That is correct.
Which part of Bates Road?
The whole thing.
The whole thing. So from
So
Reading all the way
we're
up.
trying to, my son is working on it, who's one of our Darden Prairie residents. Anyway, he lives off of Bates Road, so he's massaging it. We're trying to make it fit into the federal model of the amount of money versus what we're asking for. essentially it's going to be a mill and overlay of Bates Road. We don't need a lot of concrete curb and gutter improvements. However, there is the section of Bates Road that is concrete. A lot of people still think it's McClure Road, but it's actually
Yeah.
part of Bates. So whether or not we're going to be able to add that piece in or not is still up for debate. We're going to try to fit some of those, because there's some bad slabs in that area. A lot of cracking that section of Bates where it's just concrete. slab.
Right now, at least from South Outer Road down to where Bates turns and goes.
Right,
towards-
but Bates can actually
Then that part,
continues,
maybe.
and it's all concrete through that section.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Maybe I'm the first to step out. I have nothing,
An update from the vision committee. The vision committee has elected to add on a meeting to have a roundtable discussion. That's January 8th meeting. So, committee's still plugging away. Encourage anyone who wants to come out and you join and it's happening.
Time here, January 8th.
6:00.
Pardon?
6:00.
6 o'clock on January.
Anybody else?
Yeah, no, I just, was sitting here tonight and this has been 1 year since I first came to my first meeting, from last year, and lots happened and, you know, it's certainly, you know, in reflection of that, and over the past year, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for the folks up here, city side and Alderman side coming in here. And I wanted to just kind of express my personal gratitude to the members of the city staff, for all the hard work that they put in to make this happen. We had a short period of time that we're up here and we talked through and we hammered things out. But you know, there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not unappreciated. I wanted to make sure that, you know, that's expressed. Secondly, you know, one of the things that I've done every time I've gotten up here over the last year since I've gotten into this position is thanked everybody. And the reason why is because that first meeting, I noticed there were a lot of folks that were putting a lot of time, effort, and they're putting their heart and soul into, you know, and getting very passionate about local politics. And that was inspirational for me. And I noticed that, you know, I've said it before, there was maybe a little bit of a lack of appreciation. So when I say it every time, it may seem repetitive, but I do mean it. I want to thank you guys for coming out here tonight and participating in politics. And look, even, you know, tonight, some of the things that were said, board members were hard at work engaging with the developer, and we impacted some of those changes. So I want to just, you know, kind of give a nod to the board members who were engaged, including myself. But, you know, it was a team effort, and you guys coming up here and giving us those, you know, continuing to give us that feedback. That's helpful. And thank you for doing that now and in the future. And thanks, as always, to our fine folks in uniform back there. That's all.
Anybody else? And a motion to adjourn?
Motion, second.
Without Merry
Christmas,
Christmas,
yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, if we don't
Oh,
see you
yeah.
before
Oh, yeah.
Christmas,
On three.
have some, happy holidays and, thank you for coming.
Say Merry Christmas.
So. Be adjourned.
Hold on, hold on. Oh, shoot.
Uh-oh.
still here.
Just a
What about it?
You have a Merry Christmas, sir.
Hey, is
I will.
that?
Yeah.